Indotelungile, Goodman Mosele. And I want to ask you this, Chuck. We know we've been talking in South African football with Pirates at the center. Where is Saleng? What's happening with Saleng? Saleng is needed. We've also said that here on the pod, right? But reinforcements are here. Goodman Mosele, as I mentioned, scored the winner in the game against Cape Town City. We saw Ndlondlo in the Nedbank Cup. We saw him come on again in the game against Cape Town City. And we saw Ubandile Shandu was out for a long time, and he's back following the comeback of Omako as well, who had been out for a long stint, right? The players that are back for Orlando Pirates, is this the cavalry that is needed? Is this the depth that perhaps Pirates have been crying out for in the stretch towards the league and the CAF Champions League conclusion?
I definitely think so, Jay, because if you think about when these players have come on for a cameo role, it's at the point where I think some players are exhausted, some players mentally are fatigued, and they're not necessarily at their sharpest. Because prior, take it back a couple of months, when Xoki came on was to replace an injured Sisani. When Sibisi came on was to replace an injured Nda. So it was not necessarily us showing our depth in terms of here's who else we can play. Here's who we have as a backup to the guy who's gone out. But now when you look at players like Ndlondlo who've been patient, it's a player who we look to when we're chasing a game in terms of, okay, we're taking off Udlamini or we're taking off Umfukeng. Here's who we're going to play. We're going to play Goodman Mosele. So it's now an ace up our sleeve. And that's what depth is basically in terms of when your frontline players can't do the maximum or they've hit a ceiling, who can you turn to? And oftentimes we just stuck to our 11. And basically the idea was that, for me at least, with the tempo the Pirates play at, with the games and the number of games we played so far, we need that depth to come through. And so the PSL does us no favors. I mean, rain affected our game, right? Waterlogged pitch. There's Royal Aim on the schedule as well. Another game postponed. So the games are going to pile up at some point where you need the bodies to try catch up to Mamelodi Sundowns. So I think it's good to see Goodman Mosele come back from injury, Shandu, as you listed as well, and also Ndlondlo, who's been, as I said, patient, always being named on the subs bench, but never really getting a run out. So I think those guys coming in and also producing, that's the important part. They're not just bodies, but producing. Goodman Mosele with the goal to win us the game against Cape Town City, Ndlondlo coming in for the entirety of the second half against Baroka. Not Baroka. It was Baroka in the Nedbank Cup. Thank you. So I think those guys, Jay, I think it is good in terms of having those guys, plus putting them in key situations where it's difficult, where you're counting on guys, not just making up bodies. So I think it adds to the Arsenal because we just saw Oras Musta come off the bench, basically. We saw Cavalry come off the bench, and that was basically what we saw in terms of subs. So the fact that there are more bodies coming in and they're actually contributing, I'm happy to see that.
When you go back to the game against Mamelodi Sundowns that Orlando Pirates lost 4-1, you were looking at the bench and it looked a little thin, right? And when you look at the bench of Mamelodi Sundowns, you were looking at guys who you are thinking to yourselves, if they were in the position that Pirates found themselves in that game, there are players that Coach Miguel Cardoso can turn to go and turn the game. Whereas, as I'm saying, with the Pirates, you did not quite feel that sense of confidence because you asked the question, who do we have? Which is why we were here talking about the fact that, man, Saleng is needed because we know the kind of game winner that he is. But also, like outside of that, just you need bodies if you're going to be competing against the juggernaut of the Sundowns in the Premier League, and then you know the rigors of being in the Champions League, and you're still looking to three-peat, defending your title in the Nedbank Cup. It's going to take a toll, and the Pirates squad was looking a little thin. The football has been exciting, the results have been there, but you wondered how long, and this is something I've wondered out loud in terms of what are Orlando Pirates going to look like in April and May, and this is something that's still a question, but I'm more confident about their chances in terms of keeping up the performances and the levels deep into the season when we go into that late part of the season where champions are decided, in April and in May. And you see a Goodman Mosele who's back and he's scoring the goal. You see the first goal against Cape Town City, which was scored by Umabasa. The assist comes from Nkota who's playing on the left in this game, where we've seen him predominantly occupy the right hand side of in terms of being a winger. And now you think to yourself, well, Hoto has been allowed to go into the forward places because Marco is back, and if Hoto is playing on the right wing, then Nkota now doubles as someone who can give rest to Urel. We still don't have an answer for Tito. Essentially, there's not really anyone there who can spot Tito, but that's fine because everywhere else when you look, as I say, Marco is back. Yes, there's still the injuries to Sesani and Unda, who I think are the starting centre back pair, because those two who are playing at the moment.
No, Maro Pulgelantona is stepped up a level this season. I think Xoki
Yes,
is
he
pulling
has.
him down.
But
Yeah.
when as a pair, Chuck, and you know, there's a moment where City were breaking in that game, and Xoki did well. Xoki did well because it was 1-on-1. If that player got through, and he should have passed, actually, there was a goal there. And the way that I saw Paris play in that game, and I think they're gonna play like this going forward, because they have to win games. Like Rivera is taking more risks, where he's pushing up both fullbacks at the same time. He's leaving the two centre backs, so the rest defense is questionable, and that defensive line is high, and sometimes in the opposition half, because he's looking to get the results, right? But you do have those centre backs. Like Xoki is back from injury, and that is good. And then, as you say, Shandu is also back, and now you have Ndlondlo, who, as you say, has been biding his time and being patient, and he's not going to displace any of the starting midfielders, but it's good to have in games against teams maybe who you might feel you are that much better than, that you can play not a complete B-side, because you don't want to do that, because we saw shades of that against Imakesi in the Carling Cup, and we saw what happened with that. But you do want to have the depth, you do want to have the bodies. You have Goodman Mosele back, and his first stint at Paris, when I first saw him, I was like, man, there's a real good player there, you know. And what Goodman Mosele gives you is he's a 6, but he can also do the dirty work. So you think about him and Makaula together, and you're protecting that back four. You think about him instead of Makaula, then he's giving Makaula some rest as well. So it's looking a lot healthier in terms of that depth, and I agree with you. It's necessary, because those cancelled games, they're going to have to be played.